All right, hope you can all see that. All right, so welcome to October 10 edition of the OpenJ9 Community Call. If you haven't done so already, please put your name and affiliation in the document. All right. Start by looking at the user raised issues to see if there's anything new that requires discussion. And it looks like we don't have anything new, so we'll skip that today. So in terms of the 0.41 release, I don't think Peter is here, but Adam, did we publish the M2 builds already?
We did on Friday.
I think that was October 6th. And so we're looking to do GA start next week. There is one PPC CRU issue remaining that we're hoping to get in soon. Before that, but otherwise we're looking good for GA. Okay, let's move on to JDK 21. Jack, do you have an update on Loom progress?
Yeah, so last week we have been either closing or moving a few out, and currently I think there are 8 Loom issues remaining with respect to 21. The Java core one that I'm working on is just we had the discussion on the format, how to correctly output into different sections. So that one is currently being done, just waiting for another round of review before merging.
Okay.
And for the 4G migration one, we're looking at establishing a new metric, the parameter, to determine when it's the threshold of moving a stack into above 4G and when not to do it. So that one is currently, I'm testing locally to see if the number I had in mind of what to do, it's good enough in terms of the Skynet stuff that we're currently targeting as a test. Which I'm expecting should be done this week.
Okay. And for the remaining issues, what is the outlook on?
For the remaining issues, anything that can be reproduced consistently, I think it's either closed or we have someone currently actively working on. There are a few that are highly unreproducible. So we're sort of depending on a grinder output to see when we can get a debuggable build or core to see what is going on. There's one with the breakpoint yield in Mac that I'm currently looking at. I haven't been able to reproduce it locally just by the test itself, so I'm looking to reproduce it using the entire framework.
Okay. I think Gak is also looking at that one, so if you do get diagnostics, please send it his way.
Okay.
So in terms of ETA, I think we had said last time we were looking at October, but where would you ballpark estimate?
So for the work that we currently are we already understand the problems. Those ones I expect to be within like 2 weeks. For the ones that are intermittent and we're having a difficulty reproduce, that is really hard to say.
Okay. So the Skynet one, we should have the fix for.
The Skynet one is basically the
Or I2.
4G migration, so we're expecting that to be 2-week time.
Well, so we decided we're not going to put this as a blocker. We're just going to do non-compressed.
Yeah, I think Apnine already had a PR open for that one.
Okay, so this one will go, and then there is this one, threadless stack traces. Is this one intermittent?
It
is. Yeah.
It is? Okay. So that's one we'll have to look at. And then this one.
These two are also intermittent.
Intermittent. Okay.
So the one above that find scope value values was ready last Friday, so it should be good to merge. So with that, we also close the associated PR, which shows up in the list at the top.
Yeah, this one?
Yeah, so you will get 2 more out.
Okay. So I guess there's this one also. That's a JIT one. Is anyone from the JIT team here?
Yes.
Henry, do you know the status of this one?
I believe Nazim is working on that right now. I'm not sure when he expects to have that the JIT change ready there.
Okay. And then this one as well. I think Nazim's looking at this one also. So it looks like we have about 6 loom blockers remaining. So I think we're still fairly far. Okay. Cheng, how are things going with FFI?
On just up call, I would finish all tasks on all support platforms so far. What we observed that there is a couple of test failures on AX, so I'll double check if there's any test issues or code change out there. So I expect there should be no code changes there because there's probably some platform independence out there, which I should be finish everything by end of this week. If everything was good, I'll put code change first, code review.
Okay, thanks, Cheng. So yeah, I don't think we're ready for a split yet because we don't have a good timeline. But we may know better next week once the FFI stuff is in. Okay. So we have the 0.43 release plan, 72 issues. I think we're looking at a December 1st decut, so that gives us 2 months. A lot of these issues were moved out of 0.41, so I suspect we might be doing that again. So we'll need to be disciplined about moving stuff into backlog if we don't think there's a realistic chance of fixing them. Okay. Adam, any update with machines?
Yeah, there was a Mac 10 that's been sitting there disabled for a while because it randomly fails clean workspace. We're going to have it look at it, have it reinstalled because it's not really something that's easy to diagnose because it's so intermittent. There was 2 machines we had for AX that we had shared with Omar, so that would give them 4. So we took back their older 2 machines that were on 7.1. So we've added them into OpenJ9 farm. They're just being vetted to make sure that they work. And then next step is to update all the 7.1s to 7.2 and 7.3. Still having issues with UNB machines. We've had to reduce our workloads overnight in order to have the builds finish and pass. Did talk to UNB and they didn't have any ideas of why that's happening. It seems to be network related, so we still have to investigate what's going on there. That's about all I had.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Is Marius here? Nope. Okay, from a Siri perspective, we're just working on the blocker for 0.41, adding support to force portability code on restore, as it helps us work around some issues on Power 10. Any update on Valhalla, Teresa?
Pretty much the same. I've been working on modifying some of the existing tests to get rid of the old queue types and primitives, just to make sure when everything new goes in, it actually works properly. That's about it. I think Hong is back this week.
Okay. Okay, so this brings us to the end of business. So I've put a little note here describing my assessment of how these calls have gone. And we've had this project in the open for the last 6 years. And we haven't really increased activity in the community calls beyond the main IBM and occasionally Red Hat members. And so I think that in order to have a larger impact in terms of reaching the broader community, I think we should try to focus a bit more on what we do in the OpenJ9 community to make sure that anytime we have a call, it is purposeful, it is something that will drive interest in the project. So I have a proposal here. I don't intend that we decide on anything today because I know some people are away, but I would like a decision by next week's call on what we'll do moving forward. So the basic idea is that I'd like to get away from basically status updates on various components, and I'd like the focus to be on what we are delivering. So I'd like us to, when we do have a call, talk about new features that are coming in the next release, or maybe a presentation of Precipia on some new technology. And anything that involves status updates, we can keep to the planning channel. These can be done on a weekly basis, but we don't need to have a call to say what our current ETA is. So concretely, I would like to stop these weekly calls and schedule a call for every release. So that's typically 6 a year, 4 quarterlies, 2 feature releases. And then we can do a blog post to describe what went in that release. We can schedule calls as needed for presentations and Precipias. And we can also do blog posts if that makes sense. If there is a big topic that requires a lot of discussion with various people, we can schedule a talk specifically for that topic. But otherwise, anything to communicate status can be left in the planning channel. And that's about it. So if you have any thoughts, feel free to share them now.
I'll just say a few words to say I support this kind of direction towards, refocusing what it is that we discuss and talk about in these meetings towards, kind of user-centric topics, rather than focusing on the running of the project. I mean, I know that we've always wanted to have more people show up and contribute to OpenJ9 and work with us on OpenJ9, and that hasn't changed. We still want that, but I think the evidence is that not very many people are currently showing up to discuss those things with us on these kinds of calls, and so I think it's better that we refocus our efforts here on trying to establish better connections with our user community, and I think this would be a good step forward towards trying to do that. So thanks for putting this proposal together, Toby, and for having the idea in the first place to kind of change things up a bit.
So I have to agree that being more user focused will be an improvement. I have some concern over the frequency, though. You're proposing just 6 meetings a year. To tell people what is coming is kind of doesn't give them a chance to influence it makes it harder for people to influence what's happening if they just show up after it's done. And do we have any proposal about how we might advertise this change and make it more inviting give people a chance to know that we're being more inviting?
So there's no plan on how we're going to communicate this change beyond this discussion and what we put on the Slack channel. I think part of the issue is that we don't have much reach as it is right now, and I think any change we make, I'm not sure impacts anyone outside of the IBM Red Hat folks, which is why I think we need this change. I think if we have fewer meetings, it is easier for some. I think we have a better chance of getting more of an audience with fewer meetings, because they're likely to be more unique, more informative, more purposeful. So I guess to answer your question, I don't see a risk in making this change. I don't think there's anyone out there who is going to be caught blindsided by this. And I think the upside is very high. I've put blog posts there as a part of what I think should be what should be a follow-on to these meetings, because I think historically we've had pretty good success in reaching people with blog posts. Not everyone wants to watch a YouTube video, but something that's condensed into a blog format is very easily consumable. And people may be even more interested in that than the actual meeting itself. I don't know if I answered all your questions, Keith.
Yeah, I agree. The blog post should help. I don't know. I would hope that you're open to increasing the frequency if we decide that would be helpful. Going from from 52 a year to or 50 a year to 6 is a rather big change, and so maybe somewhere in the middle we'll find is the right balance.
Okay.
I think that would be a great problem for us to have. To be
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
I think one of the other channels that we can leverage here is the Eclipse OpenJ9 Twitter account, which is probably one of our better ways of engaging with users, although it's hard to measure how many people actually see things that we publish there. But I think it's one of the more broad sources of kind of connections that we've got. So I think if we can start using that, I'm looking at the account right now. I have 12 notifications just over the weekend on things that are relevant to Eclipse OpenJ9 that need to be dealt with. So I think there is some outreach there that we can do, and hopefully at least make people aware of the change this way, and see if we can get people more engaged.
Teresa, you have your hand raised. Would you like to share something?
Yeah, so my first thought is I personally like these meetings because at least from my position, I don't hear updates for all the projects like uh anywhere else necessarily, like besides hearing kind of BM status updates. So I like that part, but I definitely don't think it needs to be in this format or every week. That would just be something I wouldn't want to totally lose. And that doesn't have to be an OpenJ9 thing either. That can also just be like a team thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we want to be a little bit careful in how we talk about this, and I mean, I don't think the intention here is to hide information from anyone, right? Our purpose here is still to have an open project where people are free to engage with us, and if they need information, they can get that information. We're just trying to find ways to kind of share that information across our existing community more efficiently and more effectively, as well as increase outreach to our user base and try to grow the connections with our users more than we've like at least historically been successful at. So we would be a little careful, and I don't think we want to make this a we're switching to an internal only development model or anything like that. This is still an open source project, and we still need to be open about and transparent about what it is that we're doing. It's just a question of how that information gets shared and where we are kind of talking about that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, just possibly different concerns for IBM team versus users.
Right.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think so I think one thing to recognize is most people out there, most people I have communicated with on issues that are not IBM Red Hat. They're not necessarily JVM developers, but they are JVM users. And I think these are the people we should be targeting. I'm not saying that we shouldn't care about potential OpenJ9 contributors in the future, but I do think that users of OpenJ9 are in the last 6 years have been the demographic that's been most interested in the project. So I think, and this is on the topic of focus, I think this is where we should shift the focus to. What is helpful to these people who are trying out OpenJ9? What would they find meaningful? What content would they find meaningful, and how can we provide that content to them so that they can engage more and help us reach a broader audience? I think we should still have a way to share information for OpenJ9 developers. There's a question of, as Mark was saying, how do we want to share this information? So, while I've only put 6 confirmed meetings in my proposal, it doesn't have to be restricted to 6 meetings. If there's something we need to discuss, we should discuss it. It's just a matter of saying, let's discuss this in the channel, and then we'll plan a meeting. In the past, we've had a higher frequency of Principias, which is also a way for people, the JVM developers, as well as external audiences, to learn about what's going on, the development that's going on, how the technology works, etc. So I think we should still do those things. It's really just about focusing on the specific bits that have an impact and trying to remove some of the more mundane things. Any other thoughts from anyone else? Okay, so as I said, we don't have to decide anything today, but I would like to get a decision by next week. So feel free to think about it. If you have any thoughts, you can put them in the planning channel or message me directly, and we can talk about this again next week. So stop sharing. So thanks everyone for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.